Hi, this is the lesson on mean, median, mode, and range. So mean, median, and mode, those three M's, the three M's, are ways of measuring what we call the measures of central tendency. So they're the ways of measuring what tends to be in the middle. So it's the measures of central tendency. So they have that in common. So when you have data that you've collected, whether this is data of the entire population or this is data from a sampling of the population, then you want to look at this data and be able to analyze it and see what's going on in the center. Okay, so we're going to use three different ways, the three M's. The mean is the one that's the synonym to average, but all of these are really ways of finding like the average or the typical. So to find the mean, what that means is you're going to take the numbers that you're given and you're going to add them up and then divide by the number of numbers. So that's how people find the average. So let's say that these numbers we have here were yards, positive yards on a play. So, in one, say there's a running back and he gets 13 yards on one play, and the next time he carries the ball, he has 7 yards, 6 yards, and then 3 yards, 3 yards, 7 yards, and 3 yards. So we're like, okay, what's the average number of yards per carry in this game? And he was able to carry the ball 7 times. So what we would do to find the average is we would take these numbers and we would add them up. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7 plus 13. So I have to, when I did that, I chose to add them up in order from least to greatest. And that's going to come in a little bit later. You'll see why. So when I do that, I'm going to take that number and I'm going to get the sum. That's all the numbers added together. So that's going to be, the sum would be, let's do it right. So that would be 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 10 is 22, plus 20 is 42. Is that right? So 20, 30, 42. Yeah. So that's how, by the way, that's how I add. I don't add like in order. I add them. I make sets of 10. That's a better way. That's an easier way to add when you're adding long lists of numbers. But you don't have to add that way if you don't want to. I don't care. So that's 42. So 42 is the sum. Then I'm going to take 42 and I'm going to divide it by the number of numbers I have. That's going to give me the average. Again, we know there's 7 numbers here. So divide by 7. So that means the average is 6. So for this, the mean average is 6. I added them up and divided by 7. Here's a little bit of a warning, heads up. When students often do this problem, they put in their calculator 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7 plus 13. And then the next thing they hit is divided by 7. If you do that and you try to do it that way, what's going to happen is you're only going to divide that last number by 7. And so you're going to do 13 divided by 7, which is going to be 1 6/7. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to think that it's like, I don't know, just think for a second, I'm sorry, like 40, like you're going to think the average is 40, around 40. Because if you add that way and then hit divide by 7 at the end, then you're actually only dividing the last 2 numbers and the other numbers you added because of the order of operations. So in order to get the right answer, you need to find the sum, enter, then hit divided by 7. Okay, so find the sum, write it down, then divide by 7. Then you'll get the right answer. Okay, that's usually the most missed. That's usually the main mistake. Okay, so after that, I have the average. So on average, would say we said football, so he had 6 yards per carry. Okay. Now, the other way of measuring the center is to actually, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit. We'll go back. Remember, we said this was 6. Okay. The other way of finding an average or a typical would be to actually find the median. And the median is the middle number. So it's like there's going to be numbers, half the numbers are more than the median, and the other half of the numbers are less than the median. And the median is just like the number in the middle. So in order to find the middle number, I have to put them in order from least to greatest. So if I order my numbers from least to greatest, and I make sure that I account for all 7 numbers, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 3 threes. Well, I need to account for the 3 threes. I can't just ignore them. Then to find the middle number, I say, okay, how many numbers are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 numbers. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So what that means is, if I cut the numbers in half, okay, then 3.5 of the numbers are on one side, and 3.5 of the numbers on the other side. So watch what happens when I count in. 1, 2, 3.5. Now I'm going to go to the other side. 1, 2, 3.5. So when I counted in 3.5, look at what I'm pointing at. I'm pointing at 6. Now look, see, that is the middle number. See how that number is in the middle of the other numbers? So now the median is also 6. So we could say, again, on average, he had about 6 yards per carry by finding the median. It was the same answer. The mean and the median will not always be the same answer. They just happen to be the same answer in this problem. The other way is to look at the mode, and we use the mode a lot. Whenever we say like majority rules, that's when we're using the mode. We're saying whatever the most common answer is, that's the one we're going with. And that's especially when there's only 2 options, that's going to be the one that people usually use to find the average. So the mode is a powerful thing, because when the mode is like an overwhelming number, like most people said this, or most of the numbers are this way, the mode tends to be the number that we go with. Now in this case, the number that appears the most here is the most number of yards per carry he had was 3. So here the mode is 3. Now the mode in this case is also the minimum number of yards. So I don't think it would be fair to say that on average, he only carried the ball 3 yards per carry, because although it happened 3 times, it's also the least number that he did. But it's important to know what's the most common number. It helps us to look at the data. So now we can look and say we found the mean, the median, and the mode. Those are the numbers in the middle. What the range does is the range says how far apart are these numbers spread. So you're going to take the greatest number, the maximum number, 13, and subtract the least number, in this case, 3, and you get 10. So the range is 10. The range is saying that his data was spread out by 10 yards. So from the smallest amount to the greatest amount, there was 10 yards in between. That's significant because when your range is really spread out, then that tells you that the min and the max are going to affect the mean. But it's okay. Right? All you have to do now is just find them. You don't really have to analyze it. You just have to find the answers. We're not going to ask you to look too deeply at this point. So can you find the mean, median, and mode and range? Well, let's try another one. Oops. They changed all the controls on this thing. It's hard for me to do. So here's another example. These are just some numbers listed here. I won't even give you any context. I don't know what these numbers are. We're just going to find the mean, median, mode. Okay, so it says find mean, median, mode. We always list them in that order. That doesn't mean that's the order you have to find them in, but that's just the way everybody says it, mean, median, mode, range. I'm going to probably find the mode first because it's the easiest. But the first thing I'm going to do before I find any of these is I'm going to take my data, I'm going to put it in order from least to greatest. So I see that there's 2 7s, and I marked them in some way, so I remember to use them. There's 2 9s. There's 10, 12, and 15. So now I'm going to count to make sure I have all my numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I must be missing one. Which one didn't I include? Oh, I found it, 19. Yay. So see that process? Okay, so now that I have enlisted in order from least to greatest, I'm going to scan through and find the one that's the most often. Mode, most often. So what appears the most often? Well, in this case, I have 2 7s and 2 9s. So both of them are the mode. So you can actually have more than one mode. Because if you have numbers that appear the same number of times, then they're both your mode. So you can have more than one mode, you could have just one mode, or you could actually have no mode at all. It's possible to have like one that's like there's no mode, and the mode wouldn't be 0, then it would be none. And that would be if all of your numbers were listed the exact same number of times. Let's say you had, like, I'll show you an example of no mode. So no mode would look like this. Oops, no mode would be like, let's say I had numbers that were like this: 2, 2, 3, 3, 7. Am I saying it out loud? So let's say that was my data set. See how all the numbers appear twice? So none of them appear more often than the others. So this would be an example of no mode. It wouldn't be a mode of 0. In order to have a mode of 0, I'd have to have, now my mode 0, because that's the most common number. But, so no mode, going back, let's undo that then. Where's my eraser? There it is. Now going back to look at it this way. Okay, so now it's no mode again. So that's just so you know about mode, that you actually could have no mode. But in this case, we do have 2 modes. It's called, when it has 2 modes, there's a technical word for it. It's called bimodal. You don't need to know that though. But all right, so now we found the mode, and there's 2 of them. The next thing I'm going to find, for me, I'm going to find the median next, because I kind of like to put off the hard one to the end. And I'm going to find the median. So the median is the middle number. I remember that median is the middle because the word median has a D in the middle. So D, median. And I got this word, middle. So median has or median like in the highway, the median is in the middle of the highway between the cars, or to the traffic. So that's what a median is. It's in the middle. Okay, so how do I find the middle? Well, one way that they teach you when you're younger is to find the middle is you kind of count in 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and like that. But I don't really think that's a great way to do it because you're older and you don't really need that strategy. So instead, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 numbers here. So that means if I divide those numbers in half, I get 4. So there should be 4 numbers on one side and 4 numbers on the other side. And now I've divided my data in half. But the problem is there isn't a number here. So how do I find the median? Last time we just circled the 6. There's no number here. So when you have an even number of numbers, you're not going to have a median. They'll be divided equally in half. So what you're going to do to find the median is you're going to take these 2 numbers here, the 9 and the 10. I'm going to add them. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. And watch what happens when I divide that by 2. I get 9.5. Now, you knew that, right? You know that halfway between 9 and 10 is 9.5. I just showed it with math, but that's another way to get it. So it's the number halfway between them. So it's halfway between 9 and 10, 9.5. 9.5. So I can't avoid it any longer. I now need to find the mean. And the mean is the mean one. It's the one that's really mean. It makes me do the most work. That's how I remember that. The mean is mean. I have to do the most work when I find the mean. So let's find the mean. We're going to add these numbers up and then divide them by the number of numbers. So I'm going to get a sum. I'm going to add them up. I'm going to get the sum. And then after I get the sum, I'm going to divide that by 8. So let's get the sum. I'm going to pause to get that. So when I added them all up, I got a total of 88. So the total sum of all the data is 88. So I'm going to divide that by 8. And I get 11. So just so you know, your mean should always be a number that fits inside your data. So it should fit between the numbers. Your mean will never be less than your minimum, and it will never be more than the maximum. It's going to fit inside the numbers. So a quick check would be if you're finding the mean and you get an answer like, let's say you got an answer like 70 something, okay? Well, it can't be 70 because the biggest number here is 19. So your answer has to be a number that would fit in your data. And 11, although there's no 11 in my data, it would fit there. There is like 11 would be like right here. So that's close to the middle. Why is it shifted all the way towards the right? Well, that's because 19 is so big. And so there's another way. There's ways of analyzing data to understand why it's skewed. We're not going to worry about that today, though. We're just going to worry about calculating it. Okay, so we find the mean. It's 11. So if I look at the average and I find the median, it would be 9.5. If I wanted the technical average, it's 11. And the mode is 7 and 9. So I have now analyzed the data. Now, from there, you can make inferencing. We're not making inferencing today. We're just calculating. And then we have the range. So the range tells me how far apart the data is. The range is the spread. How far does it range? Like we say, it ranges from here to here, the range. So the range is take the maximum, the greatest, 12, and you subtract from it the smallest, or the minimum, 7. And so I wrote 12 and 7. You're not here to stop me. I mean 19. I forgot that 19 again. 19 minus 7 is 12. I was thinking of the answer, and I wrote the answer down instead. So the range is 12. That's how far apart the data is spread. So this 12 isn't the 12 in the data. The range might not look anything like your data at all. It just so happens to be a number in the data set. The range, how far apart it is. So it could be totally different than what your data looks like, depending on how far apart it's spread. Okay, so there you go. There is the introduction to mean, median, mode, and range. Thank you for listening, and I hope it was helpful to you. Thanks.